This is Sony Xperia Pro-I. It is world's first 1-inch sensor camera smartphone with face detection autofocus. Now you must be warming up your fingers to go into the comments and say, no, there are other smartphones with 1-inch sensor in it. And you'd be correct, but that's not what I said. This is world's first smartphone with 1-inch sensor camera that has face detection autofocus in it. Oh yeah, the fine fabrications of marketing, right? Nevertheless, it's still impressive how they fit all of that into an 8.9mm thick phone with a tiny camera bump, which can shoot 4K 120 frames per second HLG 10-bit video with audio. But wait, there's more. Xperia Pro-I has 6.5-inch 21:9 4K 120Hz HDR OLED screen with 240Hz touch scan rate, Snapdragon 888 chipset, 5G Sub-6 connection, 12GB of RAM, 512GB of internal storage, which is expandable with an SD card, 4500 mAh battery that can be charged up to 50% in 30 minutes with a 30-watt charger, 3 microphones, 2 on the sides, 1 next to the cameras for better sound capturing, 3.5mm audio jack, stereo speakers, finger scanner, a volume rocker, a customizable button that can summon the camera, a shutter button, Corning Gorilla Glass Victus display, and IP65/68 dust and water resistance. When it comes to cameras, at the front we have an 8-megapixel camera which can shoot up to 1080p video, and at the back we have 16, 24 and 50mm 12-megapixel cameras with Zeiss lens encoding, accompanied with the 3D ITOF sensor for better focus, as real-time eye autofocus for human and animals, real-time tracking in photos, object tracking for videos. Just like other Xperia phones, it can take 20 frames per second photos with autofocus and auto exposure tracking with 60 calculations per second. And the 24mm camera has a variable aperture and it can shoot up to 4K 120 frames per second HLG video with audio. So I guess the question is this $1,800 camera that can make phone calls any good? Yes, you heard that right. This is a $1,800 smartphone. But according to Sony, this is not a smartphone. This is not under the smartphone category. This is in the camera category. So this is not a smartphone with 1-inch sensor in it. This is a camera with 1-inch sensor that can make phone calls. By the way, this one is a prototype, so most of the features are not finalized on it. For example, the 50mm lens is not working at all. So this is more of a sneak peek in what's coming, kind of a spec reading / review. When the production model comes out, I'll be reviewing it properly for sure. And the lenses we get are 16, 24 and 50mm instead of 70 and 105 that we had on Xperia 1 Mark III. The 12-megapixel 24mm lens has the 1-inch sensor behind it. It has variable aperture that you can change between f2 and f4. Normally Sony Xperia 1 Mark III, 1 Mark II, Sony Xperia Pro, they have such sensitive cameras that when you're out in a bright light, you need to put an ND filter on your phone to get the proper footage. But with this one, you can change the aperture and keep on shooting, which is a very welcome addition. Right now I'm shooting like this with Moment's ND filter and the ND filter, the filter mount, so I can achieve the shallow depth of field I want and 180 degrees shutter speed. But of course on 24mm I can switch between the apertures, but that will give me less depth of field and I don't want that right now. Let's start with 16mm ultra wide camera. It has 1/2.5-inch sensor and 1.4 micrometer pixel size. It is not fixed focus like most ultra-wide-angle cameras, and the image quality coming out of this camera is really good. But it supports up to only 30 frames per second in 4K and 60 in 1080p. However, when we switch to 24mm wide-angle camera, this thing turns into an RX 100 with its glass spherical lens, 1-inch sensor, dual aperture, and 4K 120 frames per second capabilities. Wide-angle lens is easily one of the best cameras on a smartphone, and I'm in love with the shallow depth of field we get. So as you can see, we have audio settings here, and in audio settings we have left, right, and if I tap on it, it says rear. Left, right is this and the microphone on this side, and the rear is the microphone we have here. So if I'm filming her and if she's talking, I probably want to use this microphone so we get better audio. Now we're going to test the both scenarios and see what the difference may be.
So in the last video where I got a chance to talk, I told all about my band, Time of the Dragon, and the song we had coming out. So last time that I had an opportunity to talk to y'all, I told you about my band, Time of the Dragon song. But I think it's time we talk about me, Joe Nagel, because I've got music coming out. And I think, you know, here and now is a great time to talk about me. And I'm doing a whole solo project. So, you know, I want to tell you guys, Joe Nagel Music, at Joe Nagel Music.
One of the nicest things we have on this phone is, of course, the looks that just gives videos a certain look. So I think it's time we test this. Would you like to create a little short movie?
Yeah, sure.
Independent movie with me?
Yeah, let's do it.
Like, can it be about like life
and art?
Yeah, like you put your hands on the leaves.
Like, you know, like
yeah.
that.
But we also need a voiceover. You need to do the voiceover.
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome to life. Life is rental. And we are visitors on this rock that spins in the vast universe that we call the universe. So, how can you make decisions? If I go this way, I don't know where I'll end up. But if I go this way, I have no idea where I'll be. This way. Look at that. After all that, I guess it didn't even matter. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And always remember, life is rental.
This phone also has a feature called external monitor, just like the other Xperia phones, and what you can do is you just connect a device that has USB streaming, and then when you go into the app, as you can see, now we're using this. Hello. And this phone is not as slippery as Xperia 1 Mark III or 1 Mark II, but it is still slippery, but that's not a problem now because they have a strap hole here where you can tie a wrist strap, which is what I did when I was outside. We have all of the buttons on one side again, volume up, down, fingerprint scanner, on off button, and then this camera is customizable. You can select it to bring the camera. And this is our shutter button. When you half press this, it focuses, and when you fully press it down, you take a photo or you start shooting a video. But since all of the buttons are on one side again, when you put this phone on a car mount, some of the buttons get blocked. Now let's go into the photo app. When you go into the photo app, it opens up like this. We are in the basic menu. From here you can switch to auto, program auto, and classic shutter, and then manual exposure. If you have a Sony camera, this is something you must be very familiar with. Also in this photo app, you can switch to video and start shooting video, and it is the most basic video app. But they added another video app to this camera, to this phone, and that is called Video Pro. And in Video Pro, this app takes care of a lot of stuff. With Cinema Pro app, if you know Xperia phones, they have the Cinema Pro app, which you have to set it up for the scene you're gonna shoot. You cannot start shooting indoors and walk outside. You have to adjust everything before you start shooting it. But with this, we get to have auto shutter, auto ISO, and autofocus, of course. So we can use this with a lot of the settings we have and get a nice looking video. You can change the white balance, you can change the ISO, you can change the shutter, you can turn on and off HDR, which is something we don't have on Cinema Pro. Cinema Pro HDR is always on. So this is a really good app that sits in the middle. And then we have the Cinema Pro app where everything is in manual. You are in charge and you are responsible for what you're shooting. And this is when you may need an ND filter on your phone and stuff like that. So this is the most professional app. Even though this is an expensive high-end camera that makes phone calls, it has some accessories that can turn this into a super simple and high quality vlogging phone. You can add a screen behind it, and then there's this handle, and then you can connect the little screen back here, and then the little handle, which is one of these, connects to the phone, and you can start filming yourself with the main lenses instead of the front-facing cameras, and monitor yourself while doing that as well. Also, you can connect microphones and stuff like that. It's a really good accessory, and I hope that little screen works with other devices as well, because that looks very useful for a lot of things. So in the end, I think this is a very interesting phone. 1-inch sensor is very welcome on smartphones now, and I cannot wait to see what it can do when the production model comes out. It's really exciting because this is one of my favorite cameras. This has a 1-inch sensor in it. This is RX0 Mark II. I use this a lot. I bring it with me everywhere because this gives me fantastic looking footage that gets mixed with the regular footage I shoot quite seamlessly. So having a phone that can achieve that is gonna be really good, especially with that little monitor and stuff like that that we're gonna have as accessories. But we'll see. We'll see. Keep an eye out, and don't forget to hit subscribe and play Ding Dong Ditch with the bell next to it so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And please let me know what you think about this product, what you think about its price, about its cameras, and is this something you would get? All right. Thank you very much for watching. Subs if you loved it, loves if you dubbed it. All right. See you next time.